Well, first and foremost, we'll give praise, glory, and honor to the Most High Yah by way of Yahshua HaMashiach. There you go. But I'm going to talk to y'all about a few things, man. Dude called me the other day, man. And we're going to sit back and we're going to look at them things. But before we look at those things, John chapter 5, verse 39. Dude called me about the thing we looked at with Nehemiah. He called me Sunday night, when we was at one of the brothers' house, trying to play a little Madden and eat a little food. He interrupted me on that, on both fronts. John 5 and 39. Lizzie, tighten up. You need to get taller then. John 5:39. Search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. And you will not come to me that you might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, that you have not the love of Elohim in you. Now the brother came at us the other day, and he mentioned a couple things, and we got to hit them all, if the Lord permit. He came at me about that thing with Nehemiah. Do y'all remember what we looked at about Nehemiah and Peter and what the Lord told the apostle? Y'all remember what we looked at with that? What did we look at? He thought we would talk about a physical sword. I guess we're going to have to come back and look at that too. But then he also brought something else. He kept saying all these certain things. But I want y'all to go to Galatians chapter 2 though. Something that he kept mentioning. I guess we'll look at that right now. Galatians chapter 2. Somebody got a lot of noise going on. Got to do something with that. Galatians chapter 2 about verse 6. Matter of fact, I'm going to make it 5. Matter of fact, look at verse 1. Because I don't know, he say he studied the timeline. And we're going to look at Acts chapter 10 too. He say this event here in Galatians happened the same time with Peter that we're going to look at in Acts chapter 10. He say that then 14 years after I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas and took Titus with me also. I went up by revelation and communicated unto them that the gospel which I preached among the Gentiles, but privately to them which are were of reputation, lest by any means I should run, or had run, in vain. But neither Titus, who was with me, being a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised. And that because of false brethren unawares brought in, who came in privily to spy out our liberty, which we have in Yahshua HaMashiach, that they might bring us into bondage. Now you know what he's talking about? Men who came out that sought out the liberty. You know what he's referring to? Now he just sat back and said he brought Titus with him, who was a Greek, who hadn't been circumcised. Y'all know what he's talking about? Talking about men spying out their liberty, false brethren. Anybody know what they're talking about? Don't everybody answer that once now. Now this is Titus. Titus is different than the person that I got in my mind of where he had to do this for. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Who know what I'm talking about? Or y'all like, man, just go ahead and tell them. Well, let's come over here to the book of Acts. Let's see what chapter it is that I want. I hear you, man. You all right? Let's see what chapter this is. I keep always slip my mind. Where he had to circumcise Timothy to put these people at bay. Y'all give me one second. But when he talking about spying out their liberty to bring them into bondage, you think circumcision will bring you into bondage? So why you think Paul would make this statement? Well, let's look at Acts chapter 16 and verse 1. Still hold Galatians chapter 2. He said, then came he to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus, the son of a certain woman which was a Jewess, and believed, but his father was a Greek, which was well reported of by the brethren that were at Lystra and Iconium. Now you'll have a lot of Israelites that'll tell you, see, his daddy was a Greek, so that means, and they'll tell you that Greeks were still Israelites. So if his daddy, and the reason why he wasn't circumcised, because they compelled the Greeks to live after the Israelites to live after the manner of the Greeks. That's why he called him a Greek. But that's not why that. It said the brethren there say it was well reported his daddy was a Greek. He wasn't circumcised one. So why those men who well reported it? Why he ain't said the same thing about them? You think out of all the people in that place, Timothy gonna be the only one ain't circumcised? Mommy. See, hold what you got. Go to 2 Timothy 3 and 14. Look what Paul said about Timothy, Mom. Leah, hush. Yeah. 2 Timothy 3 and 14. Now he said, but continue thou in the things which thou hast learned them, and be assured of knowing of whom thou hast learned them, and that from a child thou hast known the Kodesh scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through the faith which is in Yahshua HaMashiach. So it say that Timothy was taught this from his youth. Well, where do you think Timothy heard it from? Well, let's look at 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 1. Let's see what Paul said right to Timothy right here. Paul, an apostle of Yahshua HaMashiach, by the will of Elohim, according to the promise of life which is in Yahshua HaMashiach, to Timothy, my dearly beloved son, grace, mercy, and peace from Elohim the Father and Yahshua HaMashiach our Lord. I thank Elohim, who I served from my forefathers with pure conscience, that without ceasing I have remembrance of thee in my prayer night and day. Hold what you got. Go look at Acts chapter 24, verse 14. This man say he served the Most High Yah with a pure conscience. You know what that means? That means your mind been cleansed. After we look at Acts 24 and 14, let's go get Psalm 51. And 14. But this I confess unto thee, that the way which they call heresy, so worship I the Elohim of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets. See, that's what a lot of people problem is. They don't believe all things that's written in the law and the prophets. Just like we know in Hebrews chapter 4, he say the word preached unto them was preached unto us as well, but it didn't profit them with the faith in them that heard it. Again, I reiterate that to y'all, a lot of reason why you don't get the gain and benefit from the word as you should, because you don't believe what's written in it. And have hope towards Elohim, which they themselves also allow, that there shall be a resurrection of the just, there shall be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust. And herein I do exercise myself to have always a conscience void of offense towards Elohim and toward men. Now what y'all take from Paul's last statement? Also get Luke chapter 17 verse 1. What y'all take from Paul's last statement? Get your Psalm 51, pick me up about verse 3, and after that get your Luke 17 and 1. What you take from Paul's first statement? We still holding 2 Timothy chapter 1 and Galatians chapter 2. What you take from Paul's first statement? Last statement, pardon me. That he said he exercised himself to be void of offense towards the Most High and man. What you take from that? Go ahead. What he said here telling you is he seek not to offend anybody in any shape, form, or fashion. Especially being a preacher, so definitely that the ministry won't be blamed. But that's how all y'all should live your life. To have a pure conscience toward the Most High. Know that your mind and your ways and your doings is pure and clean. After that, get 1 John 3 and 1 to go with that Luke 17 and this Psalm 51 and 3 we about to read. Matter of fact, make it verse 2. Psalm 51 about verse 2. Psalm 51 and about verse 2. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgression and my sin is ever before me. Against thee only have I sinned and done this evil in thy sight, that thou might be justified when thou speak and be clear when thou judge. Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, thou desire truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Now we know right here in verse 10, he say, created me a clean heart, right? Now hold on, before we read Luke 17 and 1 John chapter 3, come over here to Hebrews chapter 9. What this thing, what I'm mentioning this for, because Psalms 119 and 9 says, how can a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed according to thy word. What's happening with you, young man? Yeah, I hear you. Hebrews 9 and 14. Matter of fact, make it 11. So I'm going to tell y'all something. The purpose of what this word supposed to do is, that thing supposed to, Hebrews 9 and 11.
Yo.
You got to be careful talking out loud because everybody else can hear you. The whole purpose of why he say he desired truth in the inward parts, create a new heart within me, purge my insides, cleanse my insides. Because, and he say, how can a young man cleanse his way? But by taking heed according to thy word. The only way your mind is going to be cleansed from the filth and have a pure conscience that in it is if you use the word to erase all the wickedness that dwell there. But y'all don't be doing that though. Y'all don't be doing that though. You don't actually let the word take its course and be that cleansing agent that it's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? 9 and 11. He say, but Hamashiach being come a high priest of good things to come by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands. That is to say, not of this building. Neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered in once into the Kodesh place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. For if the blood of bulls and of goats and the ashes of heifers sprinkling the unclean sanctified to the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of a Mashiach, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim. So that's sitting here telling you the blood of Mashiach is supposed to make your conscience pure. It's supposed to make your mind pure. So you can be, have Paul stated, I serve this man with a pure conscience and I exercise myself. That means if he exercises himself, that means he works to have a conscience where he does not offend the Most High nor a man. Some of y'all don't look to do either one of those things. Some of y'all look at, as long as I ain't sinning, I'm straight. But you have no problem offending another individual. Come on and look at Luke 17 and 1. Is she crying or talking? Luke 17 and 1. Then he said unto the disciples, it is impossible, but that offenses will come. But woe unto him through whom they come. Who the first person come to y'all mind before Mashiach when he say, offenses must come, but destruction be to him who the offense come? It's several examples we can use. When I actually get to the next verse, well, when I actually get to about verse 3, I'm going to tell you specifically who I'm thinking about. But you know, the first person who we read in the book commit an offense towards another individual, and woe to the man who the offense come, was Cain. You know what I'm saying? You know, Cain killed his brother. See, now with Esau had hatred in his heart for his brother, but he actually never had an opportunity to do anything to Jacob. He wanted to, which is just the same, because he said he that hateth his brother in his heart without cause the same as a murderer. Because Jacob did nothing to Esau. He did absolutely nothing. He said, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? There you go. That's what I'm thinking about, is old King Saul. There's it. Verse 2 now. It were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and he cast into the sea, than that he should offend one of these little ones. Take heed to yourselves. If thy brother trespass against thee, rebuke him. And if he repent, forgive him. And if he trespass against thee 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day turn again to thee, saying, I repent, thou shalt forgive him. Because guess what? I'm going to tell y'all something, man. It's going to be times y'all going to offend each other. Y'all going to do stuff to each other. You got to be willing to forgive each other. You know why? Because the Lord already told you. If you stand here praying at me, asking me to forgive you, and you don't forgive your brother, just know you're going to hell. You know, I talked to somebody about that when we were dealing with that thing with that white boy when he's supposed to shut up that church. And they were like, man, I couldn't forgive him. And all I'm telling them is you's a hypocrite, because you can't turn around and ask the Lord to forgive you when you sinned against him, killing him, and you can't forgive nobody else. I wouldn't care what they did. You know what I'm saying? It don't condone what they did, just the same way the Lord don't condone what you did. Because we know what the law say. I forgive sin and iniquity, but I by no means clear the guilty. He told David, I put away your sin, but you shall not go unpunished. You know what I'm saying? I don't think people sit back and really realize that statement. You know what I'm saying? I can forgive you. That don't mean I condone it. And that don't mean that you're going to get scot-free without retribution. But my soul got to be saved. So there's no way on this earth. There's no way on this earth I'm going to go to hell for this cause. Look at Leviticus 19, just so you know where in the law where it comes from. Ain't no way in the hell. That's why the Lord came and told you. It ain't the first time we looked at it. But ain't no way in the world I'm going to go to hell behind that. Go sit down, Lizzie. Leviticus 19 and 17. Thou shalt not hate thy neighbor in thine heart. Thou shalt anywise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. You see what he said? If your brother trespass against thee and you rebuke him, where you think he got it from? He said, if your brother offend ye, straightening. Don't be sitting there holding it in your heart mad at him. You know what I'm talking about? I hate that nigga. No, he said, go tell him. It comes straight from the law, though. Go tell him. Look at verse 18 then. Thou shalt not avenge, nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yah. It makes common sense when we sit back and talk about it. You want Yah to forgive you, so if you love your brother like you love yourself, you ought to forgive him since you want Elohim to forgive you. You know what I'm saying? Don't be no hypocrite. You know, he gave the story about the servant who he forgave all his debt, yet he didn't want to forgive somebody who owed him too. You remember that, right? Then when we look at King Saul, now that's why I mentioned, that's why King Saul supposed to came to your mind. King Saul, what did David do to King Saul? He steady offended against David, and David steady forgave him. Steady forgave him. When he had opportunities to put his hands on him, he didn't even do it. He showed that mercy and compassion and forgiveness. And these niggas talking about they can't forgive nobody, always screaming about David. David had a man coming to kill him, and he forgave him and ain't put no hands on him. Yeah. I mean, well, we dealing with that in a little while. We might get to that a little later. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm trying to get y'all to sit back and look at is, this is how you'll have a pure conscience, a pure heart before y'all. Because the word will get all that stuff out of there. And that stuff's still in there, you still got a problem. I was talking to one of the sisters earlier this week. I'm going to tell y'all the same thing I told her. Because the Lord sat back and used the situation just to sit back and show you. You know you're out here hypocrite. Because she showed hypocrisy in one matter. And guess what? If you show hypocrisy in one matter, don't you think that means you're showing it in other places too? Or you think it's just going to be an isolated incident? It's going to be all through it. Ain't no way around that. It's not a single solitary human being walking this earth that could convince me otherwise. You know what I'm saying? Nobody. Nobody. You know what I'm saying? If you'll say one thing and do another in this instant, you'll say one thing and do another somewhere else too. I know you're doing it. You know what I'm saying? There's no way around that. You know what I'm saying? So that's why he say renew, create a clean heart within me. Purge me with hyssop. Get my mind clean. Well, the only thing gonna get your mind clean is this word. That's why he say offenses must come. That means woe to him through the offenses come. But guess what? You might offend against each other. You ain't got no business offending against y'all though. You know what I'm saying? That offense there need to stop. 1 John 3:1. Then we come back to 2 Timothy chapter 1. 1 John 3:1. He said, behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of Elohim. Therefore the world know us not, because it knew him not. Beloved, now we are the sons of Elohim. It doth not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And every man that have this hope in him purify himself, even as he is pure. If you got that faith in the Son of the Most High, that you can see him as he's written in his word, and you'll be clean just like the Son clean. Because you got to remember what happened in Isaiah. Hold on. Isaiah chapter 6, before we get to 2 Timothy 1:1. Let's just happen to see what happened in Isaiah 6 about verse 7. Go sit down. Make it 5. Isaiah 6 and 5. Then said I, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, Yah of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar, and he laid it upon my mouth, and said, Lo, this have touched thy lips, thy iniquity is taken away, and thy sin is purged. When we sit back and look at Isaiah 51, didn't he say, in sin my mother conceived me? Because Paul told you in the 4th chapter of Galatians that he was made under the law, conceived of a woman. That means he had to take on flesh. He had to take on take on sin to get rid of sin. So then he say, I'm gonna put it. He say, take this hot coal. It'll take your iniquity off. Then he say, purge me with hyssop. Take this heat. Take this furnace of affliction. Take this trial of fire of your faith. He said, that'll get you purged. That'll get you clean. That'll take it away. You got to sit back and look at the same thing to go on with your mind. Your mind need to be cleansed. It need to be cleansed. Come on back over here to 2 Timothy chapter 1. The only way the word is supposed to cleanse your mind. You got to sit back and look at it. If your mind ain't clean, the problem is you ain't laid the word up in your heart like you're supposed to. You ain't did what we looked at last week, which was what? Take heed to the king's commandment in regard to the oath of Elohim. That's what you ain't did. And since you ain't took heed to the king's commandment, you didn't take that earnest heed, then them things have slipped. It's simple as that. 2 Timothy chapter 1, about verse 2 yet again. To Timothy, my dearly beloved son, grace, mercy, and peace from Elohim the Father and Yahshua HaMashiach our Lord. I thank Elohim, who I served from my forefathers with pure conscience, that without ceasing I have remembrance of thee in my prayers night and day, greatly desiring to see thee, being mindful of thy tears, that I might be filled with joy, that I may be filled with joy. When I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith that is in thee, which dwelt first in thy grandmother Lois and thy mother Eunice, and I am persuaded that in thee also. Wherefore I put thee in remembrance, that thou stir up the gift of Elohim which is in thee by the putting on of my hands. Now, I had a brother tell me this right here showed that Timothy, mama and grandma taught him the word. Is that what Paul said? He said, I know the faith that was in your grandmama and your mama, and I'm persuaded that it's in you, because they had it. You know what I'm saying? So even though Timothy wasn't circumcised in his penis, he was circumcised in his heart, because he was shown the faith of the way from the day he was born. His mom and his grandma had it. It didn't matter that his daddy didn't have it. Well, we can't even say his daddy didn't have it. It just say his daddy was Greek. You know what I'm saying? Said something about his mom and his grandma. Why didn't he say nothing about his daddy? And they going to tell you his daddy, see, he just was an Israelite who was living after the ways of the Gentile. That's why he said he was Greek. That don't make sense. Not if it say his mama and grandma was steadfast in it. Come on back around here to Acts chapter 16. We'll read verse 1 again. Then came he to Derbe and Listeria, and behold, a certain disciple was there. And he was a disciple. He said, what did the Lord say about you my disciple indeed? Let's look at John chapter 8, because it said describe this man as a disciple. So let's see what the Lord said will make you a disciple then, because Acts say he's a disciple. Acts chapter 8 and verse 30. John chapter 8 and verse 30, pardon me. John 8 and 30. Hold Acts chapter 16. Still holding Galatians chapter 2. As he spake these words, many believed on him. Then said Yahshua to those Jews which believed on him, if you continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So if Timothy is described as a disciple, then what did Timothy do? That means he walked in the word then. So the only thing for someone to be a disciple is you got to obey the word. See, a lot of times brothers get it confused when they read about the 12 and they think, see, that person was an apostle. See, come over here to Acts chapter 9. I'll show you somebody else who's referred to as a disciple. That just because you see disciple right there does not mean that this person was an apostle. Acts chapter 9, verse 36. Acts chapter 9, verse 36. Now there was at Joppa a certain disciple named Tabitha, which by interpretation is called Dorcas. This woman was full of good works and alms deeds, which she did. So is Tabitha or Dorcas, is she an apostle? Because you ain't got no female apostles in this book. But it says she was a disciple. So the Lord just told you what it was to be a disciple. See, hold on. Get your Isaiah 8 and 16. See, this gonna go back to having your heart purged, having your heart cleansed, having a pure conscience. Because she was a disciple, that means she walked in the truth then. Isaiah 8 and 16. He say, bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. And I will wait upon Yah to hide his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. It says, seal the law. Bind up the testimony and seal the law in the heart of my disciple. That means the word was in that woman, just like the word was in Timothy. That means that's what got their conscience pure and cleansed before Yah. The word dwelt in them. See, come over here back to Acts chapter 16. That means she believed the testimony of Mashiach. And then she walked in Kodestin, just like Timothy did. He said, if you continue in my word, you are my disciples indeed. Disciple means student, follower. So when we look at verse 2, I already didn't finish verse 1. Let me finish it again. Then came he to Derbe and Lystra. Behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus, the son of a certain woman which was a Jewess, and believed, but his father was a Greek, which was well reported of by the brethren that were at Lystra and Iconium. Him would have Paul to go forth with him, and took and circumcised him because of the Jews which were in those quarters, for they knew all that his father was a Greek. So they went out there to spy his liberty. Let's go back to Galatians chapter 2, what we were looking at. See, they said they didn't sit back and realize this man was free. He was free from the bonding of the flesh. But they want to spy that out. That's why Paul say false brethren. Not that they actually care about this man and his soul. That's the same thing they turned over here doing with Titus. Because right here in verse 3, it says that Titus was not compelled to do it. But hold on. Let's look and see something about Titus. Hold what you got. Titus chapter 1. Let's just go see something about Titus then. Because we got an epistle letter to Titus. Let's just see something about Titus then. Because it seems like Titus got the same thing that Timothy was. Mama was a Jew. Daddy was a Greek. Titus 1 and 4. Let's see who Paul writing to, just so we ain't got no confusion. Let's just see who Paul writing to. To Titus. So who is he writing to? He's writing to Titus. My own son, after the common faith. Grace, mercy, and peace from Elohim the Father and the Lord Yahshua HaMashiach, our Savior. For this cause left I thee in Crete, that thou shouldst set in order the things that are wanting. Hold on. And ordain elders in every city, as I had appointed thee. So Paul appointed Titus as a pastor. And he telling Titus to go do the same thing. This leading up to something. I hope you catch what I'm talking about. than what Titus had to do before he even get to this position. Well, we sit back and look at Timothy was a minister too before he could get that position. They might have been mixed. They still were Israelites on the half side. You understand what I'm saying? One half they was on their mama. See, you have another dude, they ain't Israelite because their daddy wasn't one. By blood, they wasn't. I'm also going to talk to you what this stupid nigga told me. He's a spiritual Israelite. Ain't no such thing. Ain't damn one of y'all got no business uttering that. Because nowhere in this book do you see anybody called a spiritual Israelite. They just were Jews. Yahudim. You know what I'm saying? The praise of Yah. Just to keep it short and simple. They're the praise of Yah. You sit back and you say, I'm a Jew, I'm Yahudim, I'm Yehuda. You saying, I am the praise of Yah. And if you the praise of Yah, that means you his son. That means you put that on. You understand what I'm saying? You put that on. Just so y'all know where it's at, come over here to Genesis 29 so y'all don't think I'm just making it up. She called you like she was dying. Genesis 29, verse 34. I'm sorry, verse 35. You don't even need that. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she said, now will I praise Yah. Therefore she called his name Judah and left barren. So Judah, or Yehuda, means praise of Yah. Y'all just follow me on that. Come back to Titus. Ain't that something? Titus' daddy was Greek and mama was a Jew. He wasn't compelled to be circumcised, yet he was ordained to be a pastor. And then he told Titus to ordain more pastors in every city. Let's read verse 5 again, just in case that's not what it says. For this cause left I thee in Crete, that thou shouldst set in order the things that are wanting, and ordain elders in every city as I had appointed thee. If any be blameless, the husband of one wife, having faithful children, not accused of right or unruly. For a bishop must be blameless as the steward of Elohim, not self-willed, not soon angry, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre, but a lover of hospitality, a lover of good men, sober, just, kodesh, temperate, holding fast the faithful word as he hath been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers. Now, if Paul appointed Titus to be an elder, don't you think that Paul would have taught it to him? He'd have taught him the word, right? Okay, just follow me now. Come on back to Galatians chapter 2. Just follow where I'm going. Leah, cut it out. So let's look at verse 3. But neither Titus, who was with me, being a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised, and that because of false brethren unawares brought in, who came in privily to spy at our liberty, which we have in Yahshua HaMashiach, that they may bring us into bondage, to whom we gave place by subjection, no, not for an hour, that the truth of the gospel might continue with you. Come on back over here, Galatians chapter 6. We might spend a lot of time in the epistle letters tonight to explain this matter. Since when I was talking to Buddy, that's all he wanted to do. So let's look at Ephesians chapter 6 and about verse 12. Let's see what he says. As many as desire to make a fair show in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised, only lest that they should suffer persecution for the cross of Mashiach. See, that's when we turn around. What did Peter tell us about this cross, the stake, the tree, the torture stake, suffer in the flesh, that you might suffer from sin? See, it's the same way now like it was then. See, they was glorying in the fact of, if I'm circumcised in my penis, I ain't got to suffer in the flesh to stop sinning because I'm straight. So therefore, they wanted somebody to sit back and take that suffering of their penis being hurting for a couple of days instead of suffering every day for the word. Matter of fact, let's just sit back and look at that. Genesis 34. Genesis chapter 34, about verse 12. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as ye shall say unto me, but give me the damsel to wife. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father deceitfully, and said, because he had defiled Dinah their sister. They said unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. I mean, that's a dishonor. Now, son's coming. Oh my. Sorry about that. You know why that's a dishonor, y'all? Because he's sitting back telling them, I can't get, why is that a dishonor to give my daughter to somebody that's uncircumcised? Let my sister marry somebody uncircumcised. Why is that a dishonor? Anybody? There you go. But hold on. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 5, and after that, 2 Corinthians chapter 6, Proverbs 5, probably about verse 10. Ephesians 6, 2 Corinthians 6 and 14. See, I'm going to tell y'all something, man, because I don't see how somebody will do it. How could you go marry somebody that don't follow what you follow? Don't believe what you believe? That don't make no sense. Let's look at verse 3. I'm not going to read all of this. For the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps take hold on hell. That's the same thing we looked at last week. Be careful with that deceitfulness of sin. It'll get you out of here. It look real good, but it's going to chop you up. That's why he say it's a reproach for us to be married to somebody, for my sister to be married to somebody uncircumcised.
It's right there.
You know what I'm saying? You gotta sit back and look at that.
Yeah.
He say, verse 6, lest thou should ponder the path of life, for ways are movable, that thou cannot know them. Hear me now, therefore, ye children, depart not from the words of my mouth, remove thy way far from her, and come not nigh the door of her house, lest thou give thine honor unto others, and thy years unto the cruel. Let strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labors be in the house of strangers. And thou mourn at the last, when thy flesh and body are consumed. What you think you hear about this here, man? You can feel your wealth being filled and your labors in the house of a stranger, and you mourn at the last, and your flesh and body are consumed. What comes to your mind when you hear that? Yeah, he was a stranger to a wife. He said, my breath was strange to my wife. But then he said, don't give your honor unto others, and thy years unto the cruel. Let strangers be filled with thy house, and labors be in the house of a stranger. So you don't sit back and look at it. You got to sit back who you working for. See, hold what you got. Romans chapter 6 and about verse 16. You got to look at who you're working for. 6 and 16. Romans. It's still all dealing with you, having you a pure mind. You have a pure mind, you can see these things coming. That's why he say, why don't you ponder the path of life? Why don't you ponder the path of life? Her ways are movable. He say, know ye not that to whom you yield your servants to obey, his servants are ye to whom you obey, whether of sin unto death or obedience unto righteousness. But Elohim be thanked that ye were the servants of sin, but you have obeyed from the heart that form of doctrine which was delivered you. If you obeyed that form of doctrine that was delivered you, you would be pure in the heart now, wouldn't you? Which means your labor wouldn't be filled, you strangers wouldn't be filled with your wealth. And your labors wouldn't be in the house of a stranger. You wouldn't be working for Satan. He said if your flesh and your body would be consumed. Come on back to Proverbs chapter 5. That means there shall be a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Your flesh and your body going to be consumed. That's why he said you're going to mourn at the last. What happened last? Destruction. All sinners. All those whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, along with death and hell, are cast into the lake which burn with fire and brimstone. Listen what he told them though in verse 12. And say, how have I hated instruction, and my heart despises reproof? I have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined my ear to them that instructed me. Verse 15. Drink waters out of thy own cistern, and running waters out of thy own well. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad, and rivers of water in the streets. Let them be only thine own, and not strangers with thee. Let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Now, I'm gonna sit back and look at. I'm gonna show y'all something in a two-tone way. What you think this man mean by drinking waters out of thy own cistern and running waters out of thy own well? Number one, go ahead. Number one, we got to sit back and look at. He said it's a reproach for us to give our sister to somebody uncircumcised. Now, don't be sitting there just be thinking about somebody who penis ain't clear. You got to sit back and look at it. This man say drink waters out of their own cistern. We read last week at Jeremiah, he said they hewed out their own cisterns. Right? That couldn't hold no water. And forsaking Yah, the fountain of living waters. So let's look at Romans chapter 10 and verse 1. You hold Proverbs chapter 5. Let's see how you sitting around here making your own cistern instead of drinking water out of our own cistern and running waters out of our own well. After we read Romans chapter 10 verse 1, get Zechariah 13 and 1. We probably ain't going to get nowhere near to what Buddy was talking to me about, baby, except save one matter. We might get to Nehemiah another day. Romans 10 and 1. See, Buddy kept going in talking about, you know, being a flesh and blood Israelite don't mean nothing. But it means a lot. It's not the end all be all, but it means a lot though. Don't ever let nobody minimize that. Or tell you that it's not important, that you know that you're a Hebrew, that you're an Israelite. You know what I'm saying? That you're the seed of Abraham. By the flesh. But we know we need to be according to the seed of Abraham by being the seed of Hamashiach. Don't let nobody minimize that to you as if it's unimportant. I'm telling you, don't let nobody minimize that to you as if it's unimportant. That's somebody like this here, man, got a problem. Something wrong with them. Romans 10 and 1. I'm just telling you. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to Elohim for Yisrael is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of Elohim, but not according to knowledge. For they being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Elohim. When I was talking to this man, matter of fact, back up in the 9th chapter. While I was talking to this man, same epistle of Romans, he tried to swing me with some stuff. I need to make sure y'all understand and catch it. I want you to look at Romans 9. I want you to look at verse 30. He say, what shall we say then? That the Gentiles which follow not after righteousness have attained to righteousness, even the righteousness which is of faith. But Israel which followed after the law of righteousness have not attained to the law of righteousness. Wherefore, because they sought it not by faith, but as it were the works of the law, they stumbled at that stumbling stone. As it is written, behold, I lay in Zion a stumbling stone, a rock of offense. Whosoever believe on him shall not be ashamed. Now I'm going to ask y'all a question. Where in the law is there the righteousness of the law? Where can you find the righteousness of the law at? Where can we read that at? Where can we read the righteousness of the law? Where can we read the righteousness of the law? Genesis 15 and 4. Now this is what he said that the Gentiles sought after. Now you know this can't be no Israelite because Paul made a distinct distinction between the two. After we read that, we can get Deuteronomy, I think it's 9. I'll see what it is when I get around my mind certainly right. Genesis 15 and 4. Make it 3. Abram said, behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. Behold, the word of Yah came unto him, saying, this shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thy own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and said, look now towards heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, so shall thy seed be. And he believed in Yah, and he counted it to him for righteousness. So this is the righteousness of the law. This man could not understand that as I was trying to explain that to him. Look at Romans 4 and 20. I'm going to get to Deuteronomy. We still hold in Romans chapter 9 and Proverbs chapter 5 and Galatians chapter 2. Romans 4 and 20. Romans 4 and 8, 17 actually, 16 actually. Therefore, it is of faith. Matter of fact, look at verse 12. And the father of circumcision to them who are not of the circumcision only, but who also walk in the steps of the faith of our father Abraham, which he had, being yet uncircumcised. Now y'all sit back and see that? Titus and Timothy had the same level of faith that Abraham had in the same state that Abraham was in. See, I know some of y'all thinking, well, he told Abraham to circumcise in Genesis 17. He did. It was a foreshadowing of something else. It was never about clipping your penis. It was never about that. It was about your heart. That's why he said everyone in your house and who was bought with money must be circumcised. Anybody who come in the house of Hamashiach to be an heir with him must be circumcised. We got to take that into account. For the promise that he should be the heir of the world was not to Abraham or to his seed through the law, but through the righteousness of faith. Nowhere in the law did you read any of that. That was a promise made to a man. He believed it. See, that's what messing Israel up. We want to inherit the world. We want to inherit the rule, but we don't believe in the promise, which is Yahshua HaMashiach. We don't believe in that. Therefore, our conscience is not pure. That's why he said, what manner of love has the Father bestowed upon us, that we might be the sons of Elohim? For though we see him not, we know him, and the world know us not, because it knew him not. And even though we don't see him now, we'll see him as he is. That means when you look at the word, you see the Most High for who he is, a righteous, just, upright man. And therefore you walk in them steps. You live as he lived. You forgive offense. You don't hold no grudge. You don't avenge. You know what I'm saying? You do all of that. You know what I'm saying? Everything that encapsulates following that man. You know what I'm saying? You sit back and look at Titus and Timothy, they were walking in them same steps. And all these men were worried about was a piece of flesh on their penis. So they were trying to spy out his liberty. Because we know Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 about verse 17, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. That's why he said, if you continue in my word, you my disciples indeed, and the truth shall set you free. So if you believe the Son and walk in it, you be free from sin. Then you believe the form of doctrine that was delivered unto you. You are no longer the servant of sin, which means you done purge your conscience to make yourself be exercised to not have offense against the Most High nor man. You understand what I'm telling you? Your mind need to be made pure. Some of y'all minds are worse than the most disgusting public restroom. Some of y'all are going places and be like, ugh, I ain't going in here. I wouldn't use the bathroom in here, but that's what your heart look like. Ooh-wee. How can you cleanse your way? Got to take heed according to the word now. That's how you got to do it. Verse 14, for if they which were of the law be heirs, faith is made void, and the promise made of none effect. So you think you're going to get an inheritance because of your faith in the law? Is that what he just said? If they which are of the law be heirs. This is where Israel, that's why Paul say they stumble. They stumble. They stumble. Because they looking for the law to be their righteousness and ain't submitting themselves to the righteousness of Elohim, which is Hamashiach. That's why you say, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not the things which I say? Because you don't believe what I say. That's why you don't do them. Everything y'all told Abraham to do, Abraham did it. Because he believed in it. He said, because the law worked wrath, for where no law is, there is no transgression. Therefore it is of faith, that it might be by grace, to the end the promise might be sure to all the seed, not to only which is of the law, but to that also which is the faith of Abraham, who is the fathers of us all. Going back to the law, that in thee all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. All the nations of the earth can't be blessed if they all excluded. That means y'all lied. That means he lied. I want to make sure y'all understand that clearly. How all the nations of the earth blessed if they excluded but Israel? Please tell me how they all blessed. I'm asking any one of y'all, can any one of y'all tell me how these people are, if all the nationalities on earth is blessed, how are they blessed if they all excluded, except for one, and that's Israel? How are they blessed? What is the blessing that they get? Nigga can't tell me they ruling the world, because that's not no blessing from y'all. I know it. We hear you. He said, as it is written, I have made thee a father of many nations, before him whom he believed, even Elohim, who quickened the dead, and called those things which be not as though they were. That was the same way he was telling us about a Mashiach before he came. Boy, the son was telling us stuff that was going to happen before it happened. That's why when they looked at him, it looked like he wasn't a servant of Yah, but the whole time he was. That's why he say don't judge according to appearance, but judge righteous judgment. If you sit back looking at how them people look, and you seen how Mashiach, how many of you thought y'all would have thought, oh boy, he going against the word? How many of y'all would have, be honest? Majority of all of us would have thought the same thing most of them people thought. Hey, somebody mute your phone, man. I hear all them churn, man. I don't want to hear all that, man. Y'all hear me? He can't hear me. He's oblivious right now. But y'all hear me though? I'm being honest with you. It looked like everything Hamashiach did was contrary to what the word said, but the whole time he was walking in the word. It didn't look like that though. From the outside looking in, it looked like, boy, that nigga a transgressor. Now, sometimes you got to wait for the Lord to prove all things out. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes it could be that way. It could look like, man, what is he doing? Whole time it be a yado. So sometimes you have to be careful before you open your mouth. Got to be careful sometimes. Sometimes you got to wait for the Lord to prove it out. Verse 18, who against hope believed in hope, that he might become the father of many nations, according to that which was spoken, so shall thy seed be. See, that's the key thing what we looked at. Didn't Paul say that Titus was of the common faith? That means that Titus and Paul had the same faith Abraham had. The same faith Isaac had. The same faith Jacob had. The same faith David had. The same faith Solomon had. The same faith Samson had. And Gideon had. And Noah had. And Enoch had. Same faith Moses had. You understand what I'm saying? That's the common faith. All these men were men of the faith. The same faith Sarah had. The same faith Rachel had. Same faith Isaiah had. And Jeremiah had. And Daniel had. And Job had. Come on back to Romans chapter 9. Hold on, it was Deuteronomy 9. I think it's 9 and 28. Let me see if Deuteronomy 9 and 28. Praise the Lord. It might be Deuteronomy chapter 6. That's what I want. Deuteronomy 6 and 24. See, this is what Israel's seeking after now, when we got to have both. The obedience of faith will come out of your belief in the promise. He said, I know him, that he would do justice and judgment and teach his household the way of Yah, because he knew, he believed That's why he said, I know him. So therefore, if y'all knew Abraham, that means Abraham knew y'all. He wasn't a mystery to him. He wasn't strange to him. He said the spirit of truth can't come unto them because they know him not. He said, but you know him. The only way you're going to know him is if your mind is clean. He said, Yah commanded us to do all these statutes to fear Yah our Elohim for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yah Elohim as he hath commanded us. So that's what we sitting back looking at to get our righteousness from. We don't want the righteousness that comes from the Son, because the righteousness, come on back to Romans chapter 10. Hey, bro, you got to mute your phone, man. We can hear all that, man. Us other people on here, man, they can hear that stuff. You got to be considerate of other people. Verse 3 of Romans 10. For they being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Elohim. For Hamashiach is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believes, in being the purpose. The whole purpose of the law was to get us to the Son. I done told y'all before, everybody loved to quote that Galatians 3. The law was our schoolmaster. See, that's about the Levitical priesthood. No, that's not about the Levitical priesthood, you ingrate. That was the law, was to teach you of Hamashiach. Once he came, then you know the purpose of the law, which was to get you to believe on him. Then through your belief in him, you would obey what was teaching you of him. These niggas got it backwards. They think keeping the law gonna get them to him when you ain't believe the law that's about him who you say you follow. Now when we look at verse 31 of Romans 9, right above it, that's why he say Israel followed after the law of righteousness and have not attained the law. So you see what he's saying? Because we just read, that's true now. The law of Yah is righteous by all means, right? The law of Yah is righteous. But the thing is, boy, we sought the law of righteousness in Deuteronomy chapter 6 instead of seeking the law of righteousness that's in Genesis chapter 15. That's what we messed up at. But see, the difference is what he was saying with the Gentiles is Psalms 147 and 19. You got to look at it and see why he's saying that. We still holding Proverbs chapter 5 and Galatians chapter 2. Psalms 147 and 19. He showed his word unto Jacob, and his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He have not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yah. So these people didn't know the word. So if they, let's look at Acts chapter 13, and let's see if them people were hearing the law or preaching of Hamashiach, and that's why they wanted to come by. Let's just see in Acts 13. Let's just see what it says. The whole time, I'm trying to show y'all something at the same time. You might see it by the time I get finished. Y'all will, I get to Acts chapter 10, it'd be crystal clear. Acts 13, about verse 26. I'm going to start at 22 and we're going to move around. And when he had removed him, he raised up unto them David to be their king, to whom also he gave testimony and said, I have found David the son of Jesse, a man after my own heart, which shall fulfill all my will. Of this man's seed have Elohim, according to his promise, raised unto Israel a Savior, Yahshua. When John had first preached before his coming the baptism of repentance to all the people of Israel, as John fulfilled his course, he said, Whom think ye that I am? I am not he. But behold, there come one after me, whose shoes of his feet I am not worthy to loose. Men and brethren, children of the stock of Abraham, and whosoever among you fear Elohim. Now you heard what that man just said? He just made a good distinction. What's the distinction he just made? What's the distinction he just made? So that means he said, you know, it's two different sets of people standing right here. Because if it wasn't, he just would have said men of the stock of Abraham. That's all he would have did. It wouldn't have been no need for him to say nothing else. To you is this word of salvation sent. And for they that dwell at Jerusalem and their rulers, because they knew him not, because their consciences weren't pure, they weren't clean. Nor yet the voices of the prophets which are read every Sabbath day, they have fulfilled them in condemning him. Because they didn't know the law, because they didn't believe the law. That's why he said, if you would have believed Moses, you would have believed me, because he wrote of me. So you went about to establish your own righteousness, and you didn't submit to the righteousness of Elohim. You didn't submit to Hamashiach, the purpose of the whole book in the first place. He said, and though they found no cause of death in him, yet desired they Pilate that he should be slain. And when they had fulfilled all that was written of him, they took him down from the tree and laid him in a sepulchre. I seen dudes arguing the other day. Jesus wasn't put on no cross. You know, some of them said Jesus, some said Yahshua. He was hung on a tree. They really think they put a noose around a man's neck and hung him from a tree. You know what I'm saying? They ain't even got enough common sense to know the book say the man had to be nailed in so many different places. I don't see why it's hard for them to consider. If you want to sit up there and say a whole oak tree, you don't think it's not possible to take a man's hands and feet and nail it to a tree? And do you think trees were readily available outside of Jerusalem like that? So that means they had this man literally carry a tree for him to be put on. When they see hung from a tree, they automatically thought noose. The reason why they gonna think noose, because they don't know what Isaiah 22 say. They don't know what Psalm 22 say. They don't know what Ezra chapter 9 say. They forget about Songs of Solomon chapter 5, Zechariah chapter 13, Isaiah 49, Job 19, or Job 13, pardon me. All these places, or even Genesis 3 and 15. All these places where they said this man gonna be bruised. How your feet gonna be bruised? You hanging from a noose. How he get holes in his hands and feet hanging from a noose? Y'all don't be stupid. Drop on down here, please, to about verse 38. Be it known unto you, therefore, men and brethren, that through this man is preached unto you the forgiveness of sins. And by him all that believe are justified from all things which they could not be justified by the law of Moses. You gotta sit back and look at it. There wasn't no justification of faith in the law that Moses gave Israel. He reserved something greater for another time. That righteousness of the law which was encapsulated in Abraham, that wasn't in what Moses had. All that was encapsulated in the Mashiach. That's why he said, drink waters out of thy own cistern and let the waters run through your streets. He said, you hewed out cisterns that can hold no water. Hamashiach got the Spirit and it continued with him forever. Drink water out of that cistern. Hold on, we're going to look at it in a minute. Beware, therefore, lest that come upon you, which is spoken of in the prophets. Behold, ye despisers, and wonder and perish. For I work a work in your days, a work which ye shall no wise believe, though a man declare it unto you. And when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached unto them the next Sabbath. Now when the congregation was broken up, many of the Jews and religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, who speaking to them persuaded them to continue in the grace of Elohim. And the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of Elohim. But when the Jews saw the multitude, they were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming. Now I'm going to ask y'all a question. Y'all know what a proselyte is, right? What's a proselyte? That's... Hey, man, you got your kids hollering, man, do you? He can't be nowhere near the phone, can't be. So a religious convert. Now let's look at the next thing. What are we to go and can look in the law to show why these Jews would be envious of all these people? Because why would you be envious against your own people hearing the word? That makes no sense. So where can we look at in the law where we can see something about us being envious? Well, in Deuteronomy 32, he said, I'll move you to envy with a foolish people, those that are not a people. These people were not the people of Elohim, but yet they were envious because they heard the word. And you notice these people didn't get taught no law. All they heard was the testimony of Hamashiach, and they wanted to hear more. We didn't read all the verses. Paul went to talking to them people about the resurrection of the dead of Hamashiach. That's what they wanted to hear. They say this. He said, this man here can forgive your sins and justify you in a way Moses couldn't. John 7:37. Still holding Galatians chapter 6, Galatians chapter 2, and Proverbs chapter 5. I don't know why people get on the phone and walk away from it. John 7:37. Yeah, just mute your phone, that's all. So they can hear all of that. They can't hear over that. In the last day, that great day of the feast, Yahshua stood and cried, if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. He that believe on me, as the scripture has said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. But this spake he of the Spirit, which they that believe on him should receive, for the Ruach HaKodesh was not yet given, because that Yahshua was not yet glorified. And did this man just say, drink waters out of thy own cistern? See, the whole key thing what Israel messed up at is, we kept seeking after other Elohims, which were not Elohims, which had no power, which had no water, instead of drinking water from our power. Instead of drinking water from our power. We also still hold in Genesis chapter 34 as well. And 2 Corinthians chapter 6. So what y'all think this mean in Proverbs chapter 5 if we finish this up? I got to get y'all out of here in a moment. I got to get ready to wrap this up. So what y'all think this mean when this man say, and rivers of water in the streets, and let them be thy own, and not strangers with thee, and let thy fountain be blessed. Hold on, I'm sorry, I skipped verse 16. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad, and rivers of water in the streets. I also call for Zechariah 13:1. We'll look at that too. Absolutely, because the fountain was running rivers of water in the street, now wasn't it? Ain't that the same thing you seen in Numbers when they struck the rock and water was running in the street? So let's sit back and look at fountains being dispersed abroad. Let's look at Matthew 28. Matthew 28 and 18. You still need to mute your phone, son, because we can hear all of that. Whatever you got, they catching all that noise. All right. Matthew 28 and 18. Yahshua came and spake unto them, saying, power was given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore and teach all nations. My page ripped. And baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Ruach HaKodesh, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always unto the end of the world. So be it, or amen. Now we look at something. He just told them that he just said that the fountains would be dispersed abroad, right? Let's look at Acts chapter 1. Lizzie, go get in that bed. Acts chapter 1 and verse 6. Make it 4. Acts chapter 1 and verse 4. Still holding Genesis 34. 2 Corinthians chapter 6. Galatians chapter 2. And I believe that's it. We good in Proverbs chapter 5. I still want y'all to see if y'all know where them rivers running over in the street. And being assembled together with them, commanded them that they should not depart from Jerusalem, but wait for the promise of the Father, which saith he, ye have heard of me. For John truly baptized with water, but ye shall be baptized with the Ruach HaKodesh not many days hence. When they therefore would come together, they asked of him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? And he said unto them, it is not for you to know the times of this, or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. But ye shall receive power after the Ruach HaKodesh is come upon you. And ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and all Judea and in Samaria and to the uttermost part of the earth. Sound like to me that fountain going to be dispersed abroad. Now don't. I didn't go get Zechariah 13:1, but you know in Zechariah 13:1, it say a fountain for sin and uncleanness going to be open in Jerusalem in that day. Right? When that fountain of uncleanness was open that Zechariah wrote up, that's when the Mashiach rose from the dead. And he told them, go teach everybody, and you're going to go to the uttermost part of the earth. Disperse it abroad. When we look at Paul, Paul traveled around everywhere, dispersing the fountain abroad. That man say this gospel got to be preached in the four corners of the earth, and the end going to be disperse it abroad. Now when we look at them waters running in the street, we see a similitude of that water coming out that man's side. Same similitude you see in Zechariah 14 when he say water gonna come out that throne. Same thing you see in Ezekiel 47, which turn you over here to Revelation 22. That's what he was showing you about. Revelation 22 and 17. Tizzy Lizzie, come here. 22 and 17. Go get in the bed. That's Zechariah 14 and 9. That's Zechariah 14 and 9 if you want to see it. And that's also Ezekiel chapter 47. You can just start at verse 1. You'll see all that water running up in the street. You think that's really about some water coming up knee level? Matter of fact, we'll look at Ezekiel 47 after this here. That means being fully invested in it. Fully consumed with it. Clean a man conscience. Clean a man heart. Matter of fact, read verse 1 first. 22 and 1 of Revelation 4, we read 17. He said, he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of Elohim and of the Lamb. See, all that's in Zechariah 14 and 9. All that's in Ezekiel 47, but we're going to look at Ezekiel 47 so you can see what that water raised up to. Look at verse 17 of the same chapter of Revelation 22. Then let's get over here to Ezekiel 47 so I can get y'all out of here. And this 17, Revelation 20, I'm going to tell you something, man. We roll fast, so you got to listen. We're on Revelation 22, verse 17. We just read verse 1. Now we finna get Ezekiel 47, and we're going to pick up at verse 1. I'm going to see what I want after that. And the Spirit and the bride said, come, and let him that hears say, come, and let him that is athirst come, and whosoever will, let him take of the water of life freely. That's why that man say, drink cisterns out of your own well. Come unto me that drink. He say, why you go buy wine and milk without price? Come ye to the waters and drink. You know what I'm saying? But you got to drink it from your own power. You got to drink it from Yahshua. You can't get it nowhere else. You all right? Come on, Ezekiel 47. and 1. And verse 1. Afterwards he brought me again unto the door of the house, and behold, waters issued out from under the threshold of the house eastward. For the forefront of the house stood toward the east, and the waters came down from under the right side of the house and at the south side of the altar. Just like the man told you, a river of water coming out the throne of Elohim and of the Lamb. And these niggas think a third temple getting built. Revelation just told you where Ezekiel got it from. Ain't no third temple being built. He said, then he brought me out of the way of the gate northward and led me about the way unto the other gate by the way that looked eastward. And behold, there ran waters out of the right side. Notice if waters ran out the east side of the gate, then where did them waters run down to? Y'all ain't got to go read them. I'm going to tell you where the waters ran down to in the east side. The waters ran down on the east side to Joseph and Manasseh, along with Benjamin and Dan. Let's see what else it says. And when the man that laid the line in his hand went forth eastward, he measured 1,000 cubits. And he brought me there through the waters, and the waters were to the ankles. And he measured 1,000 and brought me through the waters, and the waters were to the knees. And again he measured me and brought me through the waters, and they were to the loins. And afterwards he measured 1,000, and it was a river that I could not pass over, for the waters were risen, waters to swim in, a river that could not be passed over. And he said unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen this? Then he brought me and caused me to return to the brink of the river. Now when I returned, behold, at the bank of the river were very many trees on the one side and on the other. Then he said unto me, These waters issue towards the east country, and go down into the desert, and go into the sea, which being brought forth into the sea, the waters shall be healed. And it shall come to pass that everything that live which move whithersoever the river shall come shall live. And there shall be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters shall come thither, for they shall be healed. Everything shall live whither the river come. That's why he said, he said, man, come on around here and get this water. Let him take of the water of life. He athirst, let him take freely. He's sitting here telling you this water going to come down from where? Into the east country. You know where the east country be symbolizing? Jerusalem. He said it's going to go down into the desert, into the sea, and bring brought forth in the sea, and the water shall be healed. And everything that live which move, the river shall come, shall live. You sit back and look at it. Drink waters out of your own well. Because if it's coming up out of the threshold of the house, that means it's coming out of the cistern. It's coming out of Mashiach. It's pure water. It's pure water. It's pure water. That's water. It's got to be like that for the waters to run through the streets. Because remember when they say truth fell in the street in Isaiah 59? Then you see Hamashiach get hit in his side and water and blood came out. So that means his waters was in the street. Then he going to turn around and literally put water in the street. But it'd be a water of life. Come on back over here to Genesis 34. Genesis 34. Huh? No, you're all right. Genesis 34 and 14. They said unto them, We cannot do this thing to give our sister the one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. But in this we will consent unto you, if you will be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised. That's why he sat back and told you, don't mess with no strangers, man. Drink water out of your own well. You need to be as I am. 2 Corinthians chapter 6. But that's what some of y'all problem is. It just ain't got to be with no mate. You don't want people that be as you is. So guess what that means? You a sinner like the people you hang with. You know what I'm saying? I know I just mentioned that to y'all last week, and I'm going to mention it to you again. You a sinner just like the people you hang with. That's why you hang with them. You don't want them to be as you are. That's why you like hanging with them. He say, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. That's why Simeon and Levi said that. Come on, man. That's a reproach on us. That's a dishonor. Can't be messing with no uncertain. That's a dishonor. Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship have righteousness with unrighteousness, and what have communion have light with darkness, and what concord have Hamashiach with Belial, or what part have he that believe with an infidel? That's the same thing Simeon and Levi looked at. You an unbeliever. What part I got with you? What part I got with you? Now we sitting back looking at some of y'all sitting there looking crazy because y'all got a lot of parts with a lot of infidels. So obviously you can't be the stock of the fathers of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob because you not as they are. Simeon and Levi looked and say that's a dishonor for us. So guess what that means? That's for y'all then. Because he said if we're going to be with y'all, you got to be as we are. But yet y'all don't be with people as you are. So that only means one thing. You like the people you want to be with then. That man told you, don't mess with them strangers now. They pathway lead to hell. And people going to take you down. They going to take you down. He said you better drink waters out of your own well. Better mess with people who do what you're doing. That's going to show you can't have no pure conscience. Back to Galatians chapter 2. I think I hit everything I called for. Let's get this Galatians 2 out the way. Tizzy, Lizzie. Come on. Galatians 2, where did we stop at? Hold on, let me finish this Galatians 6 first. That's right. Let me finish this 6 and 12. Can't climb up here right now, Tizzy. So, as many as desire to make a fair show in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised, only lest they should suffer persecution for the cross of Hamashiach. That's what your brother's doing now. See, as the brother said, a lot of people stumble over that Ezekiel 47 and Revelation 22. That's why Paul told you, I lay in Zion a stumbling stone, because Isaiah told you that's where he got it from. They stumbling at Hamashiach. They stumbling at the chief cornerstone. They steady tripping over. He say, for neither they themselves who are circumcised keep the law, but desire to have you circumcised, that they may glory in your flesh. But Elohim forbid that I should glory save in the cross of our Lord Yahshua HaMashiach, by whom the world is crucified unto me, and I unto the world. That's what you sit back and look at Titus. Because Titus was a bishop. That means he was blameless. That means he crucified himself to the world by HaMashiach. He wasn't worried about no being circumcised in my people. He said he wasn't compelled to do it. I mean, if he wasn't compelled to do it, that means he wasn't moved to do it. He say, for in Yahshua HaMashiach neither circumcision avail anything, nor uncircumcision, but a new creature. And if you're a new creature, that means you would have been made pure by the blood of Hamashiach to purge your conscience from dead works. That's something you need to consider. That's something you need to weigh. Galatians 2 again. That's why Paul said we gave place in subjection, not for an hour, that the truth of the gospel might continue with you. We ain't sitting here worrying about these fake niggas. Man, their word got to be preached. Verse 6. But of these who seem to be somewhat whatsoever they were, it made no matter to me. Elohim accept no man person. But they who seemed to be somewhat in conference added nothing to me. But contrast, when they saw that the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed unto me, as the gospel of the circumcision was unto Peter. For he that wrought effectually in Peter into the apostleship of the circumcision, the same was mighty in me toward the Gentiles. And when James, Cephas, and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that was given unto me, they gave to me, what's going on, Brother Bill? They gave to me and Barnabas the right hands of fellowship, that we should go unto the heathen, and they unto the circumcision. Now, why is this important about why he say Peter was given the apostleship of the circumcision? How do we know Peter was given the apostleship of the circumcision? How do we know this? Well, let's look at Matthew chapter 10, verse 5, and then let's see how we know how Peter got the apostleship of the circumcision. 10 and 5, make it 10 and 2. For now the names of the 12 apostles are these. The first Simon, who's called Peter, and Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the publican, James the son of Alphaeus and Lebbaeus, whose surname was Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite, Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. These 12 Yahshua sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any of the city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So what does that mean then? That means Peter couldn't go to the uncircumcised. That was not what he was commanded to do. Let's look at Galatians chapter 2 again then. I'm just going through this here because of what this nigga talking about. We in verse 10. Only they that we should remember the poor, the same which I also was forward to do. But when Peter was come to Antioch, I withstood him to the face, because he was to be blamed. Now this dude had the nerve to say, now Peter was a bishop, right? Y'all know Peter was a bishop, right? An elder, a shepherd, right? Y'all do know that, right? Y'all, where do we know that Peter was a pastor at? Where can we read where Peter was a pastor at then? No, that don't make him a pastor. That makes him an apostle. Where can we read where we know that Peter was a pastor? Just because you're an apostle don't mean you're a pastor. Paul was an apostle. He wasn't no pastor. Paul wasn't married. He wasn't no pastor. No, in 1 Peter chapter 5, Peter told you, he told all the elders to rule well. He said, I myself also am an elder. We know from Matthew chapter 8, when Peter's wife's mother was sick. 1 Peter chapter 5 is how we know Peter is a bishop or a pastor. Y'all got to remember that just because somebody's an apostle don't make him no pastor. Paul is your example of that. Paul was an apostle is a man who received the word by revelation. A man who hasn't been taught by man. He was taught the law in the perfect manner by Gamaliel. He received the revelation of Hamashiach from Hamashiach. That's what made him an apostle. Galatians chapter 1 verse 15 tell you that. Matter of fact, starting at verse 11. Paul was not married. Paul was not a pastor. He was an apostle. Peter was an apostle and a pastor. So look what he said. He blamed, but not. So if Peter was a pastor, what that mean about Peter then? Because we already read it in Titus, didn't we? That means Peter was blameless. It said that means Peter was blameless. If Peter was a pastor, that means Peter blameless, right? Now Buddy turned around and say, Peter said right here, Peter is to be blamed. That means Peter was wrong in this area. Yeah, he was trying to call Peter a sinner. Is what he was basically getting around to do. Matter of fact, this man say Peter was double-tongued and double-hearted. I'm talking about he told me that out of his own mouth. Screw the post, he told me that out of his own mouth. Say Peter was asleep. He said Peter was asleep, that's why he had the sword on him. But we know Peter had the sword on him because he had to have one. I'll show you another place in Songs of Solomon why Peter had to have that sword on him. Let's look at verse 12. For before that certain came from James, he did eat with the Gentiles. But when they were come, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing them which were of the circumcision. Now why would Peter separate from his own people if Gentiles are Israelites? Does that make any sense? Yeah, I mean, and he say, and the other Jews dissembled likewise with him, insomuch that Barnabas also was carried away with their dissimulation. So that's why he said he caused the dissension in the church. No, that's what his word, because we don't say church, that was his word. He didn't cause no dissension in the body. It just, they seen Peter get up, so they got up too. They moving with him. When Peter got up, they say, well, shoot, I'm going to get up too. So he looking at Barnabas, who was with me, he got up too. He said, but when I saw that they walked not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Peter before them all, if thou being a Jew live after the manner of the Gentiles, and not do as the Jews, why compel thou the Gentiles to live as do the Jews? So he sat back looking at us and he told Peter, if you a Jew and you do what the Gentiles do, then why is you compelling these Gentiles to live as we supposed to live? If you're going to kick your game like that, if you were sitting there eating with it, then you see the Jew come in here and you get up and leave. But you want these people to live like you live, but you doing like they do. Because we know Romans Acts 16 say that them people say, man, he teaching words that we ain't lawful for us to receive or do, being Romans. See, Peter got caught up in worrying about what these people were going to say. That's why Paul came and told him, you wrong for that. You know what I'm saying? You sitting back looking at what he's sitting back telling Peter is, you can call the ministry to be blamed. You wrong for that. Don't do that. See, he told you that in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Paul told you, do we not have power to lead about other apostles? You don't see Peter snapping or going off for nothing. Peter just went ahead and took that on the chin. What could he say? So now let's go look at Acts chapter 10. Now let's look at Acts chapter 10. Because Buddy come around here and he sit back and say, well, the timeline of when this happened is along the same timeline of when Peter got this vision with Cornelius. Now we know if we go to the timeline what's written in here, Paul just became an apostle in the chapter before this. You know what I'm saying? Now, like I told him, I say, sir, well, can you give me 2 or 3 witnesses to show me that this happened? I researched the matter. Okay, you researched the matter, but can you go in the word and show me that they happened around the same time? You know what I'm saying? I wasn't trying to just like this. You could just, I just basically told him, I ain't saying you're right. I ain't saying you're wrong. I didn't need you to show me that. I just can't take your word for that. Stop. Acts chapter 10, verse 12. Make it 11. And I saw heaven open and a certain vessel descended unto him. And so there had been a great sheet knit at the 4 corners and let down to the earth, wherein were all manner of 4-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. And there came a voice to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, Not so, Lord. I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. And the voice spake unto him again the second time, What Elohim have cleansed, thou shalt not call common. That call not thou common. This was done thrice, and the vessel was received up again into heaven. Now when Peter doubted in himself what this vision which he had seen should mean, behold, the men which were sent from Cornelius had made inquiry for Simon's house and stood before the gate. So Peter asking himself, what does this mean? Stop, Lizzie. Now let's read verse 22. Well, verse read, I'll go ahead and just work it on down. And called and asked for the Simon which was surnamed Peter were lodged there. Leah! Hush that noise. The Spirit said unto him, Behold, 3 men seek thee. Arise, therefore, put your dress down, Lizzie. Arise, therefore, and get thee down, and go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them. Then Peter went down to the men which were sent unto him from Cornelius, and said, Behold, I am he whom you seek. What is this cause, wherefore ye are come? And they said, Cornelius the centurion, a just man, one that feared Elohim, and of good report among all the nation of the Jews, was warned from Elohim by a Kodesh angel to send for thee into his house, and to hear words of thee. You heard what he said? And to hear words of thee. Then called he them in and lodged them, and on the morrow Peter went away with them, and certain brethren from Joppa accompanied him. And the morrow after they entered into Caesarea, and Cornelius waited for them, and had called together his kinsmen and his dear friends. And as Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. But Peter took him up, saying, Stand up, I myself also am a man. And he talked with him, and he went in and found many that would come together. Hold on, let me back up this verse, what I wanted to hear right here. Put it down, Leah. Go sit down. Look at verse 6 in Acts chapter 10. Stop. Both of you sit down. This is what I wanted. Matter of fact, make it verse 4. Verse 3. Then we come back over here. Now we know Cornelius get a vision. He's an Italian of the Italian band, a centurion. She all right. She'll be all right. He saw a vision, evidently about the 9th hour of the day. So what time of day it was he seen this vision? He saw it at 3 o'clock. An angel of Elohim coming into him, saying unto him, Cornelius. And when he looked on him, he was afraid and said, What is it, Lord? He said unto him, Thy prayers and thy alms are come up for a memorial before Elohim. And now send men to Joppa and call for one Simon, whose surname is Peter. He lodged with one Simon a tanner, whose house is by the seaside. He shall tell thee what thou ought to do. Why is that important? Why this angel is telling Cornelius Peter going to tell him what he ought to do? Huh? Why is that important that he gonna tell this angel tell him that Peter gonna tell him what he should do? Well, let's come on over here back to Acts. Well, let's come on finish Acts chapter 10 so I can get y'all out of here. It's 9:35. So we come on back to verse 32. As he's explaining what verse 28. And he said unto them, you know that is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company of, or come under one of another nation. But Elohim has showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Therefore came I unto you without gainsaying, as soon as I was sent for. I asked therefore, what intent have you sent for me? You heard what he said? I didn't come talking no trash. I didn't come. Why would he gainsay if Cornelius is an Israelite? Why would he gainsay about going to his own? Don't make no sense now. Just follow what I'm talking about. Hush! Verse 30. And Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting until this hour. At the 9th hour I prayed in my house, and behold, a man stood before me in bright clothing, and said, Cornelius, thy prayer is heard, and thy alms are had in remembrance in the sight of Elohim. Send therefore to Joppa, and call hither Simon, whose surname is Peter. He is lodged in the house of one Simon Tanner by the seaside. When he come, he shall speak unto thee. Immediately therefore I sent to thee, and thou hast well done that thou art come. Now therefore are we all here present before Elohim, to hear all things that are commanded thee of Elohim. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, of a truth I perceive that Elohim is no respecter of persons, but every nation that he that fear him and work righteousness is accepted with him. The word which Elohim sent unto the children of Israel, preaching peace by Yahshua HaMashiach, he is Lord of all. Now dudes say, Peter was being racist. Why would Peter say he perceived that the Most High is not a respecter of person? Why would Peter make this statement? Why would Peter make this statement? Y'all know why Peter would make this statement? Because in Matthew chapter 10, he was told not to go to these people. He was told not to go to them. He was commanded from the Lord mouth himself. Don't you go to them. You remember when the Samaritan woman, with the woman who had a daughter vexed of the devil, they all kept screaming, man, get her away from here. You know what I'm saying? But they were commanded by the Lord, leave them, don't go to them. So that's why I tried to explain this to you. This is why Peter had to get this vision. So he had to get that commandment from the Lord, because the Lord had told him, don't do that. Now y'all know, now we did all of that to sit back and look at something. Who taught Timothy? Who taught Timothy? Who taught Titus? What did we read in Psalms 147? He gave the word to Israel, right? Let's look at Romans 11:1. Let's see what Paul is. And after Romans 11:1, let's look at Romans 3:1. Let's just see what Paul is. What was Peter that Cornelius came to? What was Peter for? He is Israelite too, ain't he? Yeah, Peter is Israelite too, ain't he? Okay. I say then, have Elohim cast away a people? Elohim forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So let's see what Romans say. 3:1. I'm not sure what it'll say. What advantage then have the Jew? Or what profit is there of circumcision? Because we know from Romans chapter 9, he said, man, for the Israelites is who pertain to adoption, the glory, the covenants, the giving of the law, and the service of Elohim, and the promise. All of these are the Father concerning the flesh, who HaMashiach came. Because we know if it wasn't for the seed of Israel, HaMashiach wouldn't have came. He didn't come for none of them other people. He came for them, but he didn't come for them. If you understand what I'm saying. I came for you, but I didn't come for you. What advantage then have the Jew, or what profit is there of circumcision? Much every way, chiefly because unto them were committed the oracles of Elohim. So I'm sitting here trying to explain to this man, Cornelius had to come to Peter because Peter was an Israelite. Where else is the only place he going to get the word from? See, y'all will, I'm going to go into the second part of what this man discussed, saying everybody that came before Yahshua was thieves and robbers. See, he took what the man said in John chapter 10 just a little bit too far. Just a little bit too far. I ain't going to get it tonight, though. Zechariah 8:23. I ain't going to get it tonight, though. Zechariah 8:22. Make it 20. So I'm going to say and tell you something. We know it was some wicked men before them, but I ain't finna fix my mouth and say Abraham was a thief and a robber, or Isaac or Jacob, or David or Solomon, or Isaiah, or Jeremiah, or Hezekiah, or Josiah. I'm not finna fix my mouth and say that. I'm not finna say Ezekiel was a thief and a robber. I'm not finna say Haggai, or Yahshua the son of Jehozadak, or Ezra, or Nehemiah. I'm not finna say them men are thieves and robbers. You know what I'm saying? Or Zerubbabel. I'm not finna say that man is a thief and robber. Or Yahshua son of Nun. Or Moses. I'm not finna say that. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, it shall come to pass that there shall come people, and the inhabitants of many cities, and the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go speedily to pray before Yah, and to seek Yah of hosts, I will go also. Yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek Yah of hosts in Jerusalem, and to pray before Yah. Thus saith Yah of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass, that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages of the nations, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that Elohim is with you. If you sit back and look at it, you see all them people coming to one city in Jerusalem on the book of Acts, and who was teaching them people? Peter was, the Israelite. Guess what? When we read in Acts chapter 13, all them people in that city in Jerusalem, where did they go to holler at? They came to holler at them Israelites. All them people came out of that city. All of them came to come before y'all. Did they not? You know what I'm saying? They got to go to him. They got to come to him. They got to go to him. They got to go to him. Now, they wasn't in Jerusalem when Paul dropped that word on. They was in Antioch, but they had to drop that word on them, though. All the people came up out of that city. Same thing applied to them. But you see the key thing, though. Titus was a Greek. Who he came to holler at? Paul. Who did Timothy holler at? Paul. Who the angel came to tell Cornelius who to go to? You got Peter tell you what to do. How else Peter going to tell him what to do? Because Cornelius ain't got the word. He got to go to him who got the word. That means drink waters out of your own cistern. I mean, you got to go to them who got it. Got to go to them that got it. Matthew 13:47. Little Muffin. Praise the Lord. Hold on. Matthew 13:47. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind, which when it was full, they drew to shore and sat down and gathered the good in the vessels, but cast the bad away. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angel shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Yahshua said unto them, have you understood all these things? Y'all understood all these things? Praise the Lord. They said unto him, yea, Lord. Then said he unto them, therefore every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is a householder, which bring forth out of his treasure things new and old. Praise ye Yah for Yahshua HaMashiach in the word. But